Have you ever noticed how the people who are the most difficult to read are the ones you simply cannot stop thinking about? There's someone in your life right now, maybe a person you dated, a colleague, maybe even a friend, and no matter what they did, you kept coming back. You kept checking your phone. You kept replaying conversations. You couldn't figure out why. It wasn't their looks. It wasn't their charm. It was something else, something beneath the surface. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. That wasn't an accident. What you experienced was a deliberate, psychologically engineered pattern. And today, I'm going to decode exactly how it works. Now, before we go any further, I need to say this clearly. What you're about to learn is not for the weak-minded, and it is not casual information. These are principles drawn from behavioral psychology, neuroscience, and what scholars of influence call dark psychology, the study of how human minds are manipulated without their awareness. I'm sharing this with you for one reason only. You cannot protect yourself from a weapon you don't understand. I've spent years studying covert influence, Machiavellian social dynamics, and the psychology of obsession. What I'm about to walk you through are 4 core principles that quietly rewire how someone's brain processes you. Stay until the end because the 4th one is the one most people never see coming, and it's the most powerful of all. Let's get into it. Principle 1. The law of calculated absence. Here's the first thing you need to understand about the human brain. It is a gap-filling machine. The moment information is incomplete, the brain doesn't rest. It obsesses, it searches, it generates narrative after narrative trying to fill whatever void has been left open. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect, the proven tendency of the mind to fixate more on unfinished things than on completed ones. Now think about how most people behave in social dynamics. They over-explain themselves. They're always available. They respond instantly. They volunteer information no one asked for. And what happens? The other person's brain gets lazy. There's no gap to fill. There's no mystery to solve. And when there's no mystery, there is no obsession. The moment you pull back, everything changes. Calculated absence means you deliberately create space, not out of rudeness, but with surgical precision. You end conversations while they're still good, not when they've run dry. You don't respond immediately every single time. You occasionally become unavailable, without explanation. Here's what happens neurologically. When someone who has been a consistent presence suddenly becomes less present, the target's brain registers it as a problem to be solved. The mind starts generating questions. Did I say something wrong? Are they losing interest? What are they doing right now? That internal questioning is the obsession beginning to form. You haven't done anything dramatic. You haven't played games in any obvious way. You've simply created a curiosity gap, and the brain, being what it is, will work overtime trying to close it. Imagine you're watching a movie and the screen goes black for 10 seconds unexpectedly. You don't look away. You lean in. That's what calculated absence does to a human mind. The rule here is simple. Never let someone fully solve you. The moment they feel like they understand you completely, you lose your psychological grip. Always leave just a little more story to tell. Always hold just a little something back. Absence is not rejection. It's architecture. You're designing how their mind experiences you. Principle 2. Emotional contrast, hot and cold. Now, we go deeper. If Principle 1 is about presence and absence, Principle 2 is about emotional temperature. And this is where things get genuinely unsettling, because this principle is behind some of the most powerful and damaging emotional bonds ever formed between two people. It's called intermittent reinforcement, and it's the same psychological mechanism that makes slot machines the most addictive gambling device ever invented. Here's how a slot machine works. You don't win every time. You don't lose every time. You win sometimes, unpredictably, irregularly, just enough to keep you pulling the lever. And that randomness doesn't kill the behavior. It amplifies it. You become more compulsive, not less. Now apply that to human connection when you give someone intense, focused, almost intoxicating attention. When you make them feel like the only person in the room, like every word they say matters, like being near you is genuinely electric. You set a neurological benchmark. You establish what high feels like with you. And then, without warning or explanation, you become emotionally distant, cool, perfectly cordial, but just not quite there. Not cold enough to seem cruel, but distant enough that the warmth is clearly gone. What happens in their brain is extraordinary. The dopamine system, the same neurochemical system at the core of every addiction, begins firing in overdrive. The mind starts craving that original warmth. It wants the hot back. And because the cold arrived without reason, the brain creates a reason. It starts constructing a story in which they are responsible for the shift, which means they must be the ones to fix it. This is why people chase unavailable partners. This is why someone can treat you inconsistently for months and you still can't walk away. Hot and cold, done with precision, creates a psychological bond that is functionally indistinguishable from addiction. The practical application: rotate your emotional availability, give genuine warmth, then let it cool. Not with anger, not with drama, just with a quiet withdrawal. Be warm enough to be worth chasing, and distant enough to require chasing. The key word there is genuine. Manufactured hotness is obvious and falls flat. You have to actually invest, and then actually detach. The target's mind will fill in the rest. Principle 3. The Unpredictability Paradox. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that it is better to be feared than loved, but the truest power, he implied, lies in being neither fully understood nor fully predicted. 500 years later, neuroscience has validated that completely. Here's the truth. Predictability is the death of obsession. When someone can map you, when they know how you'll respond, when you'll reach out, what you'll say next, their nervous system relaxes. And a relaxed nervous system does not obsess. It settles. You want the opposite. You want their nervous system slightly activated, not anxious, not afraid, just perpetually a degree or two above baseline, wandering. The unpredictability paradox works like this. Most people think unpredictability means being erratic or dramatic. It doesn't. True psychological unpredictability is subtle, intelligent, and controlled. Response timing is your first lever. Stop responding in predictable intervals. Don't always reply fast. Don't always reply slow. Vary it with no apparent pattern. The brain, unable to predict when it will receive the reward of your response, becomes hyper-focused on the input. Every message sent to you becomes slightly charged with tension. Behavioral variation is the second lever. The version of yourself someone meets in week 1 should not be perfectly identical to the version they encounter in week 6. Not because you're being dishonest, but because you are genuinely multidimensional, and you allow different facets to emerge at irregular intervals. One day you're expansive and philosophical. The next you're sharply focused and brief. You laugh easily one week. You're more reserved the next. They cannot build a complete model of you, which means they cannot stop trying. The third lever is withheld validation. Most people distribute approval freely and generously. In normal human relationships, that's healthy. But in the psychology of obsession, constant approval destroys the chase. When you offer validation selectively, when your approval feels earned rather than freely given, it becomes extraordinarily valuable. People will do more to receive a single sincere compliment from someone who doesn't give them out readily than they'll do for 100 compliments from someone who praises everything. Machiavellian unpredictability is not chaos. It's controlled variance. You know exactly what you're doing. They never quite do. Principle 4. Non-Neediness and the Unattainable Frame. Everything we've covered so far can be dismantled with one single mistake: needing their validation back. This is the principle most people fail, and it's why their attempts at psychological leverage collapse. Here's the brutal truth about obsession. It requires a power imbalance, not cruelty, not superiority, but a clear, felt sense that your attention, your approval, your presence, is something that must be earned, not assumed. The moment someone senses that you need them as much as they need you, the frame flips. You go from being the psychological prize to being the pursuer, and pursuers don't get obsessed over, they do the obsessing. This is what psychologists and influence theorists call walking away power. And the most important word there is genuine. You cannot fake non-neediness. People are extraordinarily sensitive to it. They can feel beneath the performance whether you would actually be fine without them. True non-neediness comes from one place: a life so rich, so full, so genuinely engaging that any one person is an addition to it, not the foundation of it. When you have that, when you are authentically fulfilled, genuinely in pursuit of your own goals, socially active and psychologically stable, you radiate a quality that is almost impossible to manufacture artificially. That quality is sufficiency. You are enough. You need nothing from this person that you cannot generate internally or find elsewhere. Your happiness does not live in their hands. And here is the paradox that makes this the most powerful principle of all. The less you need someone, the more they need to be needed by you. The more genuinely detached you are, the more you become the psychological prize in their mind. You become the thing they haven't fully won, the approval they haven't fully secured, the person they cannot quite get. Obsession, at its neurological core, is the brain's response to an unresolved pursuit. Non-neediness ensures that pursuit never fully resolves, not because you're withholding cruelly, but because you are genuinely complete without them. So, let's bring it together. 4 principles, 1 coherent framework, the law of calculated absence, never be fully available, create space, and let their mind fill it. Emotional contrast, rotate hot and cold with precision. Build the dopamine loop. The unpredictability paradox. Vary your patterns deliberately. Stay unsolvable. And non-neediness. Become the prize. Be genuinely whole. Together, these 4 principles do not just change how someone thinks about you. They change how their brain processes you at a neurochemical, almost involuntary level. Now, remember what I said at the beginning. This channel exists for one reason: to pull back the curtain on the psychological mechanics that govern human behavior, the ones being used on you right now, whether you realize it or not. Knowledge like this is protection. The more clearly you can see these tactics, the less power they have over you. If this video gave you a new lens on human psychology, subscribe. Because we go much deeper than this. Every week, new frameworks, new principles, things most people will never let themselves look at directly. The mind is a battlefield. Make sure you understand the weapons. I'll see you in the next one.